Hello everybody and welcome back to McCall's Science Enrichment. Today's experiment is entitled Fire Extinguisher, and here are the materials that I recommend for today's experiment. For today you will need a small amount of white vinegar, our good friend, you know it, you love it, and is there anything it can't do? I don't think so. You will also need a small amount of water of any kind. You will also need a container. I would recommend something that's clear. I'm using a tall glass container, but you can also use a plastic container. But the key thing about this container is you want the mouth of the container to be exactly the size of the palm of your hand. Now I tend to have larger hands, so my container is a little bit larger, but you definitely want the mouth of that container to be able to fit onto the palm of your hand with no gaps. You will also need a tiny bit of baking soda, and then of course a spoon to help you move that baking soda around. You will need a safety lighter. So safety lighters have fuel in the handle, and to light them you have to press a button and then click a handle. I want to recommend to all students doing this experiment, please be safe. Do not ever use a safety lighter or anything else that is combustible without adult supervision. Please do this experiment with the supervision of an adult. There's nothing more dangerous in a household than open flame. So please be careful with your safety lighter. And the last material today that you'll need is either a tea candle, and I like tea candles because they're nice and low, or you can use birthday candles. These birthday candles are rather tall, but I'll explain to you how to use them for this experiment in just a bit. Now, what I want to say is I did some preliminary experiments with this round here, and I found that my camera has a very hard time showing candle flames. When I light this tea candle, the flame is sort of visible, but the sensors on my camera only see sort of a glow. And it's important that we see what happens to the flame of our candles today. So I may not be doing this experiment exactly the way that my instructions call for because of the camera that I'm using, but I'll explain all that today in just a bit. So here are our procedures. Hang on. Okay, our procedures today are going to cover what are called 3 trials. Now, in science, a trial uses just about the same procedure from scene to scene with slight changes or variables among those scenes. So this is our first scene of the day. And for all 3 trials, we're going to be using these common materials. We'll be using our candle, we'll be using our safety lighter, and we'll be using our clean container right here. I guess my hand is also going to be one of our materials today because of the palm of the hand, and that's fine. Now, you might notice that here in our trial 1, I have the candle set up stuffed into the side of an apple. Now, the reason for this is because the sensors on my camera have a very hard time catching or capturing a flame. So what I'm doing here is I chose a dark plate. I have the candle lower on the apple than it is high, and you'll find out soon why that is. I also put the candle in sideways. So instead of looking down on the burning candle when it's lit, you should be able to see a glow here just on the tip of the candle. The wax will fall to the plate, and you should also see a reflection of that flame here in the plate. So you may not be able to see the actual flame here in this video, but you can definitely see that there's a glow here. Now, if we do something today with the experiment and that candle goes out, the glow will disappear here, and you'll see a little bit of smoke curl up. That'll mean that the flame has gone out. If you don't see that smoke and you still see those 2 glowing areas, you know that that candle is still lit with a flame. And we'll cover all that just in a bit. So right now, for trial 1, all we're going to use are our candle, our safety lighter, our container here, and our palm. Now, I'm just going to reorganize this here just a bit. Just to make sure that we have everything that we need, I'm going to focus on the safety lighter first. A safety lighter is called a safety lighter because if you pull the trigger, you're not going to get any flame shooting out the end. No. Because this lighter has fuel here in the handle, in order for the safety lighter to light up with a flame, you have to push a button. And in this case, this safety lighter has a button as to push down. Now when I click, watch, there it is. So I'm going to start all three of our trials with a lit candle. Now you should be able to see a fairly strong glow right here. It should be obvious here on the video, even with my camera, that this candle is now lit. So here's the procedures for trial one. I'm going to take my clean, dry container. I'm going to put the palm of my hand over the top of that container, and I'm going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to remove my hand and I'm going to tip that glass here as if I'm pouring something imaginary over that flame. So what happens to the flame? The answer is nothing. Our results are nothing happens to the candle. On to trial two. Herp, heap, hop, hop. Welcome to trial two. So for trial two, we need our safety lighter, our clean container, and our candle. So for this trial, I pour a smidge, a tiny bit of water, that's good, in the bottom of that container. And our procedures will stay the same as trial one. I'm going to take my safety lighter, press that button down, click it, and I'm going to light my candle. So the candle is now lit. Now, I'm going to take my palm of my hand and I'm going to place it over the mouth of the container and I'm going to count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm going to release my hand and tip that jar as if I'm pouring something imaginary over that candle. Now watch, I'm not tipping that jar far enough so that any of that water comes out. I'm just going to tip it and to that point and stop. Did anything happen? No. So our results for trial two are nothing happened. On to the next trial. Okay, since our last trial, I emptied the water out of our glass container and dried it off so that it starts out just the same as all the other trials did. And what I'm going to do for trial three now is I'm going to add 1 heaping teaspoon of baking soda to this container. So 1 heaping teaspoon, in it goes. There we go. All right, so for trial three, the first thing I'm going to do is, after I light my candle, I'm going to pour some white vinegar into this container. And as soon as that acidic white vinegar makes contact with our base baking soda, I'm going to start to get some fizzing bubbles. Now, these bubbles are going to rise in the container. And as they're rising in the container, I'm going to put my hand over that container to sort of hold in those bubbles a little bit. And you're going to feel a little bit of pressure under your palm as you're doing that. Once this candle is lit, and I still feel that pressure under my palm, I'm going to tilt my glass this way, being careful not to pour out any of the baking soda or the vinegar, but I'm going to pretend to pour something invisible and mysterious over that candle. We're going to check and see what happens to the flame. Here we go. There's our container. Let's light our candle. Safety, safety. And there we go. Candle's lit. Now, I may have to move away from the camera this time just so I can get my coordination down. I'm having a hard time doing this trial. Let's see how we do here. Now our vinegar. Just enough to get those bubbles going. There's quite a bit of baking soda here in this container. Now it flowed over. I'm not worried about that too much. I'm going to hold my hand here. Now I'm going to pour. See what happened to that flame? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, you made a mess over here and some of that water dripped. It didn't. Some of the fizz did drip here, but you can see that the plate is otherwise dry. So I took this container here with fizzing bubbles and poured it over here, and it made that flame go out. Let's discuss why. So in science, when something is on fire or when we light a candle, we don't really say the words fire or on fire or flame. We use the word combustion. Now, in order for something to combust, we need three key ingredients, and that's why we call this the combustion triangle. We need fuel, we need heat, and we need air. And if we're lacking any of these items, if I only have heat and fuel but no air, there's no combustion. If you don't have all three, there is no combustion. As soon as you take one or more of these items away, that combustion stops. And we saw that here in our three experiments. So for trial one, I took our candle and our empty container, and all that was in here was air. So I simply poured more air onto an already combusting candle. And is that taking anything away? No, I'm adding more air. So in trial one, our candle remained combusting. For trial two, we had a combusting candle and I added some water here. Well, all I simply did was the same thing as trial one. No water was poured on this combusting candle. I'm simply adding more air. So in trial two, that candle remained combusting. Now, it wasn't until trial three that we really began to see a difference. In trial three, I added baking soda and vinegar to this container, and that produced bubbles, and those bubbles are called carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is much heavier than air. Carbon dioxide does not combust. Air does combust. Carbon dioxide does not combust. So when I held my hand over that container, that carbon dioxide gas was accumulating, and I could feel that pressure here beneath my palm. So when I finally took my palm off and poured, I'm not pouring any liquid onto that combusting flame, but what's coming out of here is a flowing, dense layer of carbon dioxide gas. That carbon dioxide gas forces all the air away from that combusting flame here, that flame tip, and it breaks the combustion triangle. This flame is not allowed to continue because I'm taking away all the air. I'm surrounding this candle now with, instead of air, I'm surrounding it with carbon dioxide gas that does not combust. So I break that combustion triangle and that flame goes out. Now let me try this experiment one more time with a few refinements, and I think I might convince you. Hang on. So I wasn't really all that happy with the visual results of trial three. We got the results we expected, but I thought my hand was probably in the way, or you maybe don't believe me that carbon dioxide can extinguish a combusting flame. And I'm going to redo trial three now with some slight modifications. So I've got my candle all ready. I have my safety lighter all ready. I have my glass container, and I have my vinegar over here to the right that I'm tapping the jug of. Now, this container, I really did have a hard time keeping that carbon dioxide gas pressure inside with my hand. I could feel it pressing against my palm, and I know that I lost a lot of the carbon dioxide gas when that happened. Also, there's no pouring spout on this container, so this may or may not be the best thing in the world. So the best thing I had to replace it with is this. This is the smallest little measuring cup that I have, and it does have a pouring spout, and it is small. Now, it's a little bit bigger than my palm, but for this experiment, I figured that I can either use two hands or whatever, and I came up with this solution. Into this measuring cup, I've put 2 heaping teaspoons of baking soda. That's plenty of baking soda to produce enough carbon dioxide gas to extinguish this combusting flame. Now, I'm going to do something slightly different. After I pour the vinegar in here and it starts to fizz and we get all those bubbles, I'm going to take a little plastic bag here. This is simply a baggie that I've cut the Ziploc lock off, and I'm going to place this baggie as carefully as I can over the spout of this container, okay? So you should be able to see this bag begin to bulge outward. It should start to become inflated with that carbon dioxide gas. Once the bag is on here and this bag is starting to collect that carbon dioxide gas, I'm just going to take a little rubber band here and place it around the lip of the container. And when I'm ready to pour this carbon dioxide gas onto the combusting flame, I'm going to take a pair of scissors and just very gently snip this end off. And hopefully when I raise it up, that heavy carbon dioxide gas will fall out and extinguish that flame. So let's see if I can do this. Cross your fingers. Hang on.